Okay, I'm here at IPL. I'm with Doublelift. How's it going?
It's going good. Stuff is we placed higher than we expected, and IPL is just really fun to be at.
Okay, so this is going to be one of my career interviews. I want to just kind of start off on some interesting topics and see where we go from there. So the first place, the most obvious from all the research that I've done on you, the first thing everyone says about Doublelift is he has the best mechanics. You know, his mechanics are what's so good. Is this like how you think of yourself? Is this an accurate description of like your best talent or trait?
I guess so. If you just talking, if you exclude Asian players for the most part, I think I'm the best just mechanically. Character control, skill shotting, and like positioning. I think I have the best decision making and what's it called? Like map awareness. I'm still working on, but they've gotten to like a really high level, I think.
You say with excluding the Asian players. I've even heard the other League of Legends pros that I've talked to have actually said that some of the Asian players might be more skilled for other roles, but they actually said that they think that you have the best mechanics even of some of the Asian players. So, I mean, are you thinking of players who you think have better mechanics than you? What makes you say that?
The only one person that I think might be as good as me in that department is Wei Zhao from World Elite. But people have been comparing me to him forever, so I just kind of think of him as like this guy who plays just like me and is just like me. And he does tend to play like the same champions that I do. But I have like never played him. Actually, it's been so long since I played him competitively. I don't know what would happen. I have to play him, and then I'll see how good he is.
In games like StarCraft or Quake even, like raw mechanical skill can have like a huge influence on the game, obviously, because even if someone's a lot smarter than you, if you have that big of an edge in that department of the aim or something like that, you can just dominate them still. People say League of Legends is less skilled or it's more limited or whatever. How would you describe like the role of mechanics in League of Legends? Like how much of an impact will it have if you have like significantly better mechanics than the other guy who you're matching up with? Like how does it work?
So I think mechanics are actually really not important in League as a whole. But I play AD carry, which is the most mechanically intensive role, and I think my strength lies in knowing how to fight really well. So 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, just any kind of fight, even when you're outnumbered, I know how to fight. And that's when mechanics actually kick in. So you have to be smart about picking your fights and knowing like what to do in certain situations first. If you're not smart, mechanics don't mean anything. You could have the best mechanics in the world, but you'd always lose. So they're only useful to me because I know how to fight.
When I talked to CLG EU's Snoopy, he told me that the Korean like method of practice is that they'll literally have like a set period of time in the day. Like all I'm going to do today is like practice my left last hit mechanics. I'm just going to do this for an hour or something like that, and that's like how they build up their fundamental skills. Do you do that, or do you just practice in the course of a game? What's it like?
Actually, the reference that I always get is like I'm the Stefano of League because I just don't practice. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I don't know why. It's just really weird. I'm sure if I practice more, I would be a lot better. And I don't have any excuses. I just don't practice.
Is it that you're not someone who likes to be so dedicated to practice like that? Is it that you just only like to play when it's like the actual official game's on? Is there even an element where, I mean, if you don't practice, you can always have that kind of excuse in your back pocket, like, yeah, I'm really good, but if I'd practiced, maybe I'd be better than you, you know?
No, there's no excuse, really. It's just that I'm lazy, and there's a good reason that people always disagree with me on, and it's that there's no such thing as good practice in North America. Like, we could practice against terrible teams or play solo queue, and climbing the ladder is going to make me actually worse. Like, I'm playing the game, but my mind is like, I'm playing against bad players. Like, if you're playing in Bronze League and StarCraft, you're going to eventually pick up like Bronze League habits, and the same thing happens in League where just playing against bad players makes you bad. So I like to keep myself fresh and only scrim against good teams and play tournament games because that's when I feel like I can be my best.
Okay, on this topic, actually, let me take you up on that, because that was something that's been like a famous mantra through all of esports. Is people always used to say, like, unless you practice against people who are as good or better than you, then you won't improve. And this probably is true for really bad players, but I also can think of a few cases, like for example in Quake 1v1 dueling, there were some players who were like really dominant champions, and their actual practice style would not be to play against other top players. They would kind of play against like mid-tier players, but I guess maybe their style of practice was so dedicated, like even if the other player did a bad move or whatever, they wouldn't like just own him off that. They would like play as though they were playing. Almost like if you think about like if you're a boxer on a punch bag, obviously the punch bag can't punch back, but you're still practicing just perfect technique, you know. You're not just like reacting only to the challenge that's against you. So on this topic, you're saying like there's almost no point practicing in America, like a lot at least, because there aren't enough good scrim partners and whatnot. Is it not the case that maybe that's also because maybe your team isn't like pushing yourselves to be super dedicated in that sense? Like maybe you need a good opponent to bring the best out of you? Is this kind of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, they're very different. So like in FPS and in boxing, it's all about your, I guess, your mechanical skill once again. And respecting your opponent is always, yeah, you should always do that in League. But it's a lot harder because there's so many more other game elements. So you have to keep your eyes on 5 teammates and 5 enemies and all of their cooldowns and summoner spells and positioning. You have to look at everything and analyze it. And like when you play against bad players, you tend to just like your brain just turns a lot of these like things off because they're just so bad, and like you don't need to do that. You start focusing on other stuff. You start tunnel visioning, and like it's hard to catch. I realize just through like trying and failing that when I play against bad players, some parts of my game sense just go like black.
Oh, okay. If we talk still about mechanical skills, is it the case that there are specific, if you think in your own mind of the best players in the world at any position, do the best players in terms of mechanics and just raw skill tend to congregate around just 1 or 2 positions, or do you think they're actually pretty evenly spread out in terms of all the best players?
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, so mechanics, mid and AD carry by far have the best mechanics. Just because I don't know, the other roles tend to just be very, yeah, just easier. I think they're just straight up flat out an easier role, mechanics wise. I'm like in terms of how much knowledge you have to have for those roles, I think it's more, but just different roles have different strengths.
Okay, that's interesting then, because I once saw a comment from you on one of the AMAs that you did. This is quite a while ago, where you said, I'm not sure if you were just trying to be humble, but you said that playing support takes more skill than playing AD carry, because the guy who's the support has to sort of enable the AD carry to do his things and like be there at the right moments or whatever. Were you just kind of being funny in your statement, or when you say skill in that sense, what do you define by skill in that sense? What were you meaning? Because obviously not just mechanics, I guess.
Yeah, definitely not mechanics. Just so skill, knowing how to make the best out of having like no items, and knowing how to control the map and how to control like the flow of the game on a support. You can't really control the flow of a game on an AD, but supports are like enablers, and you have to have a lot more game knowledge to play support, I think.
And so you still agree with that statement, that it takes more skill than even the carry position itself?
Yeah, to play support at like the highest level, I can play AD and I don't have to look at the minimap and I don't have to look at anything. I just have to look at what's in front of me, and I have to outplay what's in front of me. But a support has to look at everything and feed the AD like information and still do like the same job.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Do you feel as though maybe the casual fan or just the general fan maybe doesn't pick up on that subtlety then? Because obviously the stars are always the guys who's getting all the kills, or they're playing the jungle or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I think the normal fans have no idea like how skill distribution works in between the roles, and just how, honestly, I think every role takes about equal amount of skill, like at the highest level. So, I mean, a normal person just watches and they see the AD carry's getting the ones getting the kill, and the support has like Philstone, Heart of Gold, so they're not doing anything. So that's a shame.
I mean, this naturally leads us into talking about Locodoco, because you brought him into your team, and I saw you say somewhere after you just brought him in that you thought he was better than all the North American supports already, but that he was worse than all the international supports.
Yeah.
So I've noticed in your team, in terms of the moves that you've made, you've brought in a lot of star players over the time you've been in the team, but often that means someone has to change their role from something that might have been their best role. So what was the thinking of bringing in Locodoco for this particular role?
Me and Chauster were the ones performing the best by far on our team when we were in Korea, and we were both bottom lane. And at the time, and still even now, we were the best and could still be the best bottom lane in the world. So that was really frustrating, actually. Like, it sounds good, but it's actually really frustrating because we would still lose. And we realized Chauster's talent is wasted on support, not because support is easy or anything, but because I can win bottom lane by myself and he can impact a different area of the map. So we switched him to jungle and we got a support. We didn't know who. We thought everyone in NA was bad. So that was actually wrong. I was completely wrong, but that's a different thing. And so we were looking internationally, like you can pick up any player from any country and fly them over and get them a work visa and they can play for your team. So yeah, we picked Locodoco. Don't really remember what the rationale was for that, but I mean, Loco has a lot of potential. He at least played the lane that support is in. He played AD and he switched to support for us.
So in terms of like going forwards, like what do you envision from him playing in that role? Like how will he be different from how an NA support would play that role, or how someone else might play that particular role? Like what does he need to do to make your team successful from his perspective, you know?
So I actually think in everything, mechanics, game sense, and like skirmish, you know, like fighting, just overall fighting potential. He's not really any much better than like Special or Patoy or whatever. He's a normal support for NA, which is crap compared to the international. But he's got a lot of mental kind of things that people will never pick up on. So he communicates extremely well. During team fights, he starts yelling and screaming targets, making really good calls, feeding me in good information, stuff like that. He's really good at. But his problem right now is he's like something like 40% of our team's deaths overall. So yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about a few other of your teammates that you've had over the period of time then. In your earlier days of your career, you played with NyJacky.
Yeah.
How do you describe this guy? What do you think of his skills?
Damn. If you don't mind me asking, why do you pick NyJacky? I'm just wondering.
Because when I was just looking through your old teammates, I tried to pick someone out who people wouldn't necessarily immediately associate with you, because nowadays they just pick people like Hotshot or something like that. So I wondered what you'd think now, since you played with him so far back. And obviously since then, you've said a lot of interesting things. You've had a lot of interesting opinions on people. So what do you think?
Wow. That's a pretty deep level of research that you did. Not really, that's just interesting. I really like NyJacky, actually. He's like one of my favorite players in NA, and I really miss him. Wish we were still like hanging out and stuff, cause yeah, I was on Curse and I was the team captain at the time, and I was like a little kid. It was like a year and a half ago, so I had no idea what I was doing. But all I knew was me and NyJacky were really damn good. We were the best at the time for our roles, I think, because everyone else just sucked. So me and NyJacky would play these really like weird champions nobody else played. So he played Veigar and Morgana and just like AP Tristana mid, like all this ridiculous stuff mid that nobody played, and I'd play all this ridiculous ADs that nobody else played. And God, I just miss talking to him and having like just like funny conversations, because he was actually like one of the funniest people I've ever met. He's got like a little funny Chinese accent and his voice is really high, so like talking to him is just like really fun, and he's just hilarious, and like I don't know, he's just like a really cool fob. That's how I describe him.
In terms of your persona, I mean, you were just talking then about a time way back a year and a half ago when League of Legends was like just taking off, etc. Back then, I've seen in interviews and stuff, you say things like, oh, at the time, I wasn't like trying to be the best, I was just trying not to suck. Like I was trying to get better and trying to prove myself to like my new teammates, for example, when you got into CLG. But since then, you've obviously become famous, in a joking sense as well, for being like the guy who thinks he's the best and everyone else sucks compared to me and stuff. So how has that like persona changed over the years? Like, has it always been consistent, but we just didn't see it beforehand? Like how do you see yourself now as in terms of like where you're going in that sense?
I think my persona has actually always been the same, and if people have been following me since the very beginning, I've always just been like honest. That's my thing. Like I'm just honest, and I don't like when people like sugarcoat and do these stupid political answers. Like if somebody asks me what I think about a player, I'll just answer the question. Like I hate when people just sit. They beat around the bush, or they give some stupid political answer like he's a respectable opponent and like blah blah. Like, what the hell? That's not what people want to hear. When somebody asks me a question, they obviously did it for a reason, and they want to know what I think about that person, so I'm gonna tell them. And yeah, I just tell them, and I never just randomly insult people. It's always an interviewer asks me a question, and I answer it. Like, I'm not the kind of person to just go pick fights for no reason.
When you were over in Korea, I mean, earlier you were saying like people overrate Koreans to some degree. The 2 times that you went for these big 2 tournaments in Korea, you actually lost in the quarterfinals. So on paper it looks really bad, but then both times I think you lost to the team who eventually won the whole tournament, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think that the result was actually better than what it was on paper? Like, were you closer to doing well in these tournaments? Because obviously people look at those periods as like the worst periods in CLG, and like there were roster changes or whatever. What do you think of this, looking back now with what we know about these teams?
Damn, you've done a lot of research, but I think Korea was necessary to change how the team worked, for sure. I think if CLG never went to Korea, I never would have been as good as I am, and nobody would have stepped up, and the team wouldn't have had these ridiculous changes. So first time we went to Korea, SaintVicious. Second time, Voyboy. Now we would have Loco. Like, you know, every time there's been these massive changes and massive role swaps and stuff like that. And that's actually, I think, an edge that we have on North American teams is we... So TSM has had the same roster for like a year and a half, and I don't think that's right, actually. And same with Dignitas. You know, they've had generally... They kicked Locust recently, but... I think North America tends to recycle talent. You just look at a pro player who's been around for a long time. Oh, this guy's a beta player. He's pretty good. He has professional experience. He must be good. Like, that's wrong. People in other countries like China and Korea, they like find new talent, like little kids who seem really good. Like recently, I think like in Korea, there's just some fucking 15-year-old kid named Life. What the hell? He like won GSL or something, and I don't know. That doesn't happen here. You don't see like people pick up these new players, and it's stupid. I think when you find a problem with your team, like, oh, this player sucks, or we have this problem that can only be fixed if we have a roster change, you go find somebody new.
With that said, your team has also kind of had, like one of the big moves you mentioned there, bringing in Voyboy. This was kind of looking at another team and taking like their star player almost and going, well, let's put him in our team and see how this would work. I mean, yeah. Wouldn't people say like if Voyboy is the best top lane, so that's who we're going to take and put on our team? Is that any kind of knock against Hotshot, since he was playing the top lane before? What was the thinking behind how that was going to work?
So we actually, I think, made a mistake with that. And it's not an insult to Voyboy. It's just, I guess, an insult to our team in general and how we work with new players. And, like, yeah, we took the best top laner at the time. I think he probably was the best top laner at the time. And we turned him into a second-rate top laner because we couldn't work well with him. And that's our fault.
In what sense? Like, what was he doing differently in your team that he was doing better in Dignitas or something?
So, yeah, when he was on Dignitas, he was super aggressive, and people played off of him. He was the playmaker. He's the star. And that's the reason people thought he was the best player. And then when we played with him, me and Chauster were the stars. And, you know, everyone played off of us. And that's not something that he was used to, and that's not something the team was used to. Like, this guy's trying to make a big play. How come we're not there? Oh, we suck. Like, he died. It's his fault that he died, but we could have made it so much better, you know? And yeah, I think Hotshot was actually 100% okay with switching to the jungle because there was a really big beef between him and SaintVicious. He was like, SaintVicious, blah, blah. He had all these bad things to say about Saint, and he's like, I could jungle so much better. It's so simple, blah, 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 all this stuff. And he really wanted to play jungle at the time, but then he got sick of it eventually.
So, I mean, that leads into the obvious question is, you had SaintVicious in this team before, who's also like a big name. How did Hotshot's jungling actually compare, like, in the real world against SaintVicious's?
I can't even describe how polar opposite their jungling style is. Saint, he's the star of the show, and he's going to take everyone's farm and never gank, and he'll eventually carry you. That's his mindset. And if you don't listen to his calls, you're dumb. He's the general. And, like, Hotshot is like a super supporty jungle. It's almost like you have another support on your team. He'll come, babysit you. You're the star of the show, and like, he doesn't make too many calls. He listens to what everyone says, and he's like a very passive, supportive jungler instead of this like incredibly aggressive, selfish jungler. So I think the style complemented me, and actually I think Hotshot's one of the biggest reasons. Him jungling is, and as also Chauster is one of the biggest reasons I learned how to be so good at AD.
I mean, the interesting thing to me as someone as an observer of League of Legends, not someone who plays or watches it that much, is that it seems to me like I get the sense from League of Legends that because there's not like this overwhelming amount of mechanical and raw skill in every position, it doesn't really work to just get like all the star players and put them in one team, because really it's more about like who's willing to sacrifice in this role to help someone else, or what the identity of this team is, that like which position are we going to play from in terms of like setting up everyone else's moves. And so it actually reminds me a bit more of like the way the NBA is, because in the NBA with the salary cap you can only afford 1 or 2 star players, and so whichever positions you have your star players at, you basically base your identity of the team off that. So if you have a center, you're always trying to go inside. If you have a point guard, then you're trying to like do really fast plays so you can make the most of his skills. So if we think of this mentality going into League, what would be CLG's like identity at the moment? Like, where does the team start the fundamentals? What do you base off that, and what are you trying to do with the team compared to others?
It's gonna make me sound really cocky, but I think what we base right now, our strategy is just based off of me. Chauster. So generally right now, our sport's really new. Hotshot. If you okay, first I'll just say in North America, all of our lanes will do well or win, and we'll just win. In North America, we're, I think, by far the best team. Then internationally, versus European teams who play a crazy style, and Korean teams who play or Asian teams play a very like conserved style, we would just lose all lanes, I think. Chauster would carry us through the early game because he's such an amazing player, and then I would carry us in the late game because I think like one of the best, or if not the best AD. So that's how we approach international teams. Against North American teams, we face roll. You know, we can do whatever we want. We just we win. But yeah, internationally, I think we have to have Chauster carry us in first 10 minutes. I'll do my job in the last 10 minutes. You know.
Okay, so actually something I want to pick up on an interview you just did at this event that I heard. You made the comment that you thought the European mids in general were like the best in the world of all the regions. So if you were to split up all the roles, how do you see in your mind, like which region has the edge overall in terms of pool of players, and like this role or this role or this role? Like how do you break them down?
Yeah, definitely Europe has the best mids. Then
give me like a reason why for each as well, like why you think that.
Okay. Europe has the best mids because it's like the chicken or the egg. I think just historically they've had the best mids, and these mids love the game. They stream all day every day, like, and they just play all day every day, and they've just been good. And then who
are the 1 or 2 that are coming to mind when you think of that?
Immediately, in Europe I'll think of Froggen, Alexich. XPK is incredibly good. Curse-You, I don't even know his name. There's just too many. And then there's like Citizen Wayne, who's on a horrible team.
He's on my team.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine, sure.
He's on straight up, he's on a very unaccomplished League of Legends team. And this guy's like, he's God. I watch him play and I'm like, damn, this guy's so good. But his team sucks. Like, what the hell? And like, there's just all these amazing mids who, I'm like, where did they get this from? And then I realized like, they just play solo queue. And they play against each other, or they scrim against each other, and these mids like feed off of each other's knowledge. And then you think like we're like malnourished children over here, where like our mids are horrible in the U.S. And the only thing we have good going for us in the U.S. is we're very open, and we're very our champion pool is incredibly diverse and different from the other regions. Okay. And yeah, our mindsets are always great. You know, I see European and Asian teams get very emotional, start screaming, start bloodlusting, or just getting like down when they lose. North American teams tend not to do that. So we especially don't, like CLG doesn't get down when we lose, and we don't do incredibly risky plays when we're ahead.
And the other positions, like the other ones that come to mind in terms of the regions?
Oh yeah. North America has nothing, so I'll just flat out North America has nothing. I think
so just you at bottom, that's it.
Yeah, I think I'm the best AD. Chauster's the best support and jungle. He can play both roles, and he's probably the best at both. And that's it. And then there's Asia, who just has everything. So their top laners are gods. Never seen anyone play top lane like them. They're just on...
Who are the ones who are standing out?
3 more levels. McNoon, Shy, Reaper D, Chow Mei. These... Just all these Asian mids. TPA... Oh, Stanley? Stanley's god. Like, I see him play. He plays every champion. He plays them all incredibly well. I don't even know. And everything, man. They have amazing mids, too. They're not as good as the Europeans. They're just good. They're always just good. And then their supports. Most notably, the Korean supports. So the first one to come out was Madlife. Everyone says, he's the shit, he's God, Madlife is God. And then, you know, Azuba has 2 teams. So then they have Blaze and Frost. Madlife's on Frost, and Lustboy's on Blaze. They play against each other. Now Lustboy is incredibly good. Their ADs suck in Korea. And then junglers, I think junglers actually across each region are about the same.
Oh, okay. So, okay, here's the interesting thing is earlier on you were saying, oh, I think Koreans are a bit overrated. Now you're telling me they've got great people in every single position. So let's do it from the other side. Since everyone usually wants to go, oh, what's so great about the Koreans? Let's do the other side then. What are the weaknesses of the Koreans or Asians in general, you know? What weaknesses do they have? And is there anything that Europeans or North Americans have in terms of the approach to the game that is like a strength that the Asians don't have?
Yeah, okay, so this game, like I said, you can have the 5 best players and you might still lose because Koreans have this tunnel vision where they think this is the way I'm supposed to play the game and I'm going to make this work. I'm going to perfect my way until it works. They're not flexible at all. You can't play this game one way. There's like a million different ways to play this game, and you just like when you tunnel vision on one strategy, other teams are going to be like, hey, that's their strategy. This is like the counter. You can just use common sense and be like, this is how you counter this early game all-in strategy, and you just beat it. It doesn't matter how good you are at it. If you get countered, you get countered. So their mentalities are always what destroys them. They're not open. They play the same champions. They're very easy to read. If you know what your opponent's going to do, you can always just counter and win. So that's why they're not the undisputed best right now.
Okay, I saw an interesting quote that I've got here that you said on an AMA. You said, when niche champions are played to their fullest, they are stronger than standard champions with the right comps. And I play niche champions to the highest level. Like, this was a while ago you said it. Does that like still apply to League now? Do you think that's like a strength that you have over other people?
Oh man, that was so long ago. So that was back when AD support didn't even go bottom. I still think that's true. I still think champions, for me, I played before anyone else, and I still play better than anyone else, Caitlyn and Vayne. And those aren't normal ADs. Like, the normal ADs are Faceroll, Graves, Corki, Ezreal. And I think if you base your team around Caitlyn or Vayne, you have a better edge than if you just have this standard run-of-the-mill, you know, AD carry. And I don't know, I just think people play what's OP and they're like, in their minds, they're like, yeah, this is good, everyone else is playing, I'm going to play that. Like, why can't you play something different that counters that? I don't understand. Like, everyone just copies each other instead of trying to beat each other. You know what I mean?
Okay. Actually, here's another quote I've got for you, just because I wonder what you'd say now. Like, a lot of people who will look at the scene now, this is just talking about the general fan. This is like the sense I get from reading what they say. Okay, so last year, well, no, earlier this year, before the Koreans had so much success in the Asians, they were saying, oh, M5's the best team for sure. So they were thinking Europe was on top in that sense. Now everyone's going to be hopping on the bandwagon. The Asians saying, oh, they're on top for sure. So then that like naturally leaves the North Americans like a level below, basically. And then of the North Americans, sure, CLG's been to Korea, so they've kind of tested themselves there. A bunch of other teams have been to Europe, etc. But then it kind of leaves Solo Mid as the team who like are top North American, but then they haven't really done that much outside of North America comparatively. You said actually after you were eliminated, just after you'd been eliminated from the OGN tournament, I think it was, you said if TSM had been here, they would have done better than us. Why did you say that, and what made you think that?
Damn. I don't remember. I actually think I was wrong when I said that. I think TSM would have done worse if not the exact same as we did, because at the time, my mind was, how the hell did we lose? I tried so hard and we still lost. Like, that was like the hardest we ever tried was in Korea. I was so motivated and so like open, and I was just listening to everyone's advice, and just I was on top of my game then. And then I was like, damn, TSM's winning all these North American tournaments, like, and they're doing it so easily, and we keep losing to them. And like, in my mind I was just like, damn, I guess they're just better than us. My rationale, my logic was just like, I'm trying super hard, I'm still not doing as good as them. I guess they as a team are just better than we are. And I was wrong. They just had very like, they tunnel visioned as well, and people eventually just read how they play, and that's why they're always getting beaten now.
In terms of them, like just to pick them out as a team, from talking to some of the other people who are from North America or Europe who've been to Korea and they've seen how good the Asians are, how they practice, and the depth of the pool there, it sounds like people are kind of, I got the sense at least that they think that people like TSM, etc., are kind of a bit behind the times. Like they don't really know how well, they didn't know and how good the Asian teams were, and they really thought like, oh no, that you guys are overrating them. Like we'll be fine when we get to play them. Like, do you think this was the case and they've kind of had like a rude awakening?
Yeah, they never won a single game against the Korean team. So
is there a reason that comes to mind? Like what's the trend that's making them get beaten every time?
Korean teams do their research, and yeah, they might play a certain way, but they're just smart enough to watch replays of TSM play, and for some reason I actually just don't give them any credit. I don't think TSM is smart enough to watch a replay of the team that they're playing against. They just go into it and they're like, we're gonna do our thing, we're gonna win, and that's not how it works. Like they play well, they as players are good, but their minds like don't work together at all.
So I mean, so far in this interview, you've kind of been a bit down on everyone in North America except people on your team or you, or people who are recent teammates of yours.
Oh, yeah.
So who else is actually good in North America who we can kind of give some props to now? Like who would you like to pick out in North America who isn't on your team right now and wasn't on your team like 3 months ago, who you think actually deserves some credit or isn't talked about enough? Is there anyone?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of talent in North America. So there's this one player who was on our B team. And damn, look, he was just a normal solo queue player. I swear, he's almost no relation to me. Our B team is different than other B teams because we actually never play with them or against them. So, name is Link115, and he's just this guy who goes to college. Super talented. His potential is like crazy to me, but he's obviously can't go because he's in college. He can't be a pro gamer, and his parents are stopping him. Scar from Dignitas, I think, is good. I'm a cutie pie, even though he's a big troll and everyone hates him. I think he's good. But if you want my honest opinion, I don't think anyone in North America right now on a competitive team is good enough to fight international players. Mostly just Asian players, except for like me and Chauster, unless we step it up incredibly. So if I was just to sing, yeah, they would both be on our team because I only know the people on my team. I don't like do too much research on other players. Just me and Chauster right now are just as good, if not better, than like the best players of our role in Asia.
Okay, I mean, I was saving Chauster till the end, but you've already brought him up a million times in this interview. I've heard you say so many things about him in other interviews, like say, like he taught me how to play the lane, like he's the smartest player, like he has the best game knowledge. Like, what has the effect of Chauster been on your career? Like, if we imagine you just didn't join CLG, you joined another team, skill-wise, I guess maybe you could have been as good. You could have joined maybe another North American team. Like, how would your career be different in like the alternate universe where you don't join CLG and play with Chauster?
In the alternate universe where I never met Chauster, I guess I'd be a piece of shit. Never be good. My mechanics would never shine. People would never notice my mechanics if I wasn't using them smartly. I never was able to use them in a smart way. Chauster was the one who like fostered me so I could get through laning phase. My laning phase was horrible. Not only get through laning phase, dominate laning phase, and then use my advantage extremely well. You know, now I can use my gold advantage and my mechanics to just become a god in the game. So if I never met Chauster, I'd just be horrible. I know it. He taught me everything. He taught me how to play the game. He taught me how to think. He taught me how to my attitude should be, how to accept criticism, just constantly criticizing me. Eventually I was just like, okay, like, you know, I learned how to accept criticism and everything he taught me. So I pretty much owe my league career to him. And Hotshot's the one who got me on the team, so also to Hotshot.
When people say, I mean, it's even listed on his Leaguepedia profile, like he's known for having the best in-game knowledge or whatever for Chauster. What do you? How do you describe what that means? Like, what is it that we're not seeing when we're like outside of the server? Like, what's going on in his mind, or when you're practicing, or when you're figuring out new things? Like, what is his strength? Like, where's his area that he's got this special talent for?
Yeah. So anytime you see CLG make a move as a team, and we get an objective or do something that gives us an edge. So a Baron, a buff, a dragon, grouping, taking a tower. 80-90% of that time it's Chauster. If Chauster wasn't on the team, nobody would speak up and be able to make those calls. And it's not only that, like picks, bans, strategy, how we should go into a game, our level 1 strategy, every like strategic thing we do is generally just Chauster. All of it is him. We have no input. It's just him because it's a perfect plan. And like he might not have the best mechanics or anything or be the best individual player, but he's like incredibly smart. He never wastes time in game. He never does anything stupid, unnecessarily risky. He's just, yeah, I think the most level-headed smart player.
How do, in terms of other smart players or people who are thinkers of the game, are there people in Asia or in Europe who are like in the conversation with him for smartest player? I mean, obviously you don't necessarily know how to speak Korean or whatever languages these other guys do, so you might not know as much in depth, but do you get the sense that there's anyone out there who's like a mind of similar quality?
I actually have no idea, and that's why I feel international players have no idea how good Chauster is, because they just look at him as a player. They like watch replay and like, Chauster didn't do anything, he didn't really carry that game, but you know, if you were to play the game through my eyes, you'd be like, wow, Chauster did everything. And so I can never know that from their points of view. I'd have to like watch over their shoulder, I guess, which, you know, can't happen.
One thing I've heard about their Asian teams, and this is something I noticed from StarCraft as well, was part of what made them so good in terms of getting a lot of players to a high level was they had like almost like a factory approach to it. Like the teams, the way they brought in new players, like taught them the fundamentals, like taught them like you have to learn these specific styles before you like develop your own style. And so it was almost like a factory approach to every little bit of the game. And so it does have obviously its benefits to it. And then I've heard also in League of Legends specifically, like they have coaches who are going out there like scouting, setting up practices, specifics and stuff. It sounds like stuff that doesn't even exist in Europe basically. Is this the case? And is this like an advantage for them? Does it not matter that, for example, your team doesn't have this sort of thing? You just kind of make up your own schedule and do what you want basically?
Having a coach in management I think is incredibly important, but we don't do it. We are new to it or don't do it at all in the NA scene because we're not used to it. We're spoiled. So we were the first scene, and we're obviously the people who make the most money, and we're the most well recognized and well paid players in the scene. I think it's not gonna happen like that forever, but that's just how it is, and we're just spoiled. And then these other teams come up from these like big organizations, and they have management and they have schedules, and that's just how they came into it. But then yeah, like me, I came in, I never had a schedule, so having a schedule now is weird. It's a change. You know, that's all the Asians and some Europeans know. But it's happening now. We have a coach, we have a schedule, and it's hard, but it's what you have to do to stay competitive.
When I think of the earlier period of League of Legends, like it's easy to see why Hotshot was like the star and why his style of play like appealed to the casual fans so much, and he kind of became like a poster boy for the North American scene. You've now played with him for quite a while in the same team, and he's been doing different roles. What do you think like the core strength of Hotshot is? Does he do anything better than anyone else, or does he have any qualities that he does, things that he does that no one else thinks to do? Like, how do you define the Hotshot's like core strengths?
Yeah, so I think Hotshot's probably one of maybe like 10 players in the world who knows how to kite range champions as a melee. So generally it's the other way around. Range champions kite melee, but he knows how to zone during a team fight and not take any damage as a melee if he doesn't have to, and just use spacing correctly. And then the other thing that he does well, I think, is he knows how to put pressure. Even when he's behind, somebody has to deal with this annoying guy who's like in a lane. Damn, okay, we'll send somebody strong to deal with him. Well, like, Hotshot's weak, so he's like pulling more than his own weight. And then when he's strong, he's pulling 2 to 3 players to his lane just to stop him. And that's a strength. He knows how to pressure properly, and like, I think when you have these great mechanics and you win your lane and stuff because you're just a great Asian player or whatever, like McNoon, those things don't come to you immediately because you don't have to. Why do you have to kite ranged when you're this amazing player? You can just kill him or outplay him or whatever, you know? But Hotshot's strength is like something different. Because he doesn't have the best mechanics in the world, he had to learn these like crazy things that only he knows.
Since there's you and Hotshot in this team, you've had Voyboy, you've had these players in your team who are star quality names, and in other teams they'll go there and they'll be the star player in that team. People would say you've had this wealth of talent. Like, what is it, aside from individual things just with those players, what is it as a unit that's held your team back from just being the best? Why have you never just been like flat out the best team? I mean, based on these players, it should have been possible, surely?
Yeah, it should have been possible. We didn't work hard enough for sure. We fucked around, and I mean, I don't regret. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I regret not working hard, but I don't regret a lot of our decisions we made as a team. I think they were necessary in the long run. So going to Korea, completely necessary. We had to do that. Went to Korea twice. That's 6 months out of our league careers. That is just basically like a black hole. And then, yeah, before that, I think we were always this close to beating TSM. It would always come down to CLG versus TSM grand finals, and we would always one game win, one game lose. Last game super close, but we lost. It just means that they probably practiced or prepared 5-10% more than we did, which is a bummer, I guess.
Okay, this might be hard to think over your career, but I want you to pick out one series where it was like the perfect example of you and your team just playing, like everything was just hitting, it was like the one that you think of as like, that's like how we have to play. Can you think of one through your whole career that really stands out?
Strangely enough, I think the best I've ever played, or we've ever played as a team, was against TSM, and we ended up losing.
What tournament was this?
This was MLG Anaheim. I think we won a set. We won a best of 3 against TSM. It was an extended series, so we had to win 2 best of 3s to win. And the first set, we played really well, I remember. I almost remember like every detail. I was like 17-1 or something like that. And we just played so well. And we just lost. We won that set and we just lost the whole thing. And I was like, damn, like we played so good. What happened? We fell apart towards the end. So yeah, I think our MLG Anaheim set was really, really good.
Okay, so to wrap this up, do you have a final message for anyone who watched the interview? Someone you want to say hello to, thank you, this sort of thing?
I mean, just shout out to our sponsors, I guess, Razer, XMG Own 3D, and our new manager, Kelby. He's doing a really good job keeping us in line and stuff. So, yeah, really, not much, that's it. Oh, and also, like, my fans or whatever, not even my fans, just people who read what I say or watch what I say, like, take it, like, incredibly seriously. And I just want to say, well, like, I'm just fucking around. Like, I don't know, when I insult somebody or when I trash talk somebody, I don't legitimately think they're a bad player. They obviously got to be a pro player for a reason, but yeah, people are very, like, critical of what I say, I guess.
Okay.
That's it.